Starting. Hi, this is Matt Donegan from Challenger Stories. I'm here with Nick Gold. He's the MD of Speakers Corner and he's the director of Speaking Office and Future Voices. Nick, welcome today and
Thank
tell
you.
me something about Speakers Corner, Speaking Office and Future Voices.
So Speakers Corner is a bureau which supplies our clients who want to booking events the right speaker for their event based on what they're looking to get out of their event. So it might be they want a celebrity name, or it might be they want a new angle about how business works so that they can inspire themselves to achieve amazing things. I started the business 25 years ago, and I'm sure we'll go into it, but basically kind of quite quickly into the game. Speakers used to ask us, can you manage us? Can you help us with our careers? And we were like, no, because we are a non-exclusive speaker bureau. But we knew we were missing a commercial trick. So about 12 years ago, we set up this other company working at the other end of the spectrum, which is called Speaking Office, which is basically a management company which sits alongside speakers to help grow their speaking careers. And then the last part of my career, as such, up to this point, is a company called Future Voices, whereby about 2 years ago now, we set up this third part of the triangle, which is a speaker training company, which is about not necessarily about how to become a better speaker, although that's part of it, but more importantly, what it means to be a speaker in the industry, because actually it's a career and it's a business, and therefore speakers who come from an amazing background where they might have kind of done amazing feats of endurance or strength or something like that, or they might have won medals, or they might have run a successful business, for example, they assume they're going to be able to have a successful speaking career. And actually understanding what the business of speaking means and what it involves for you to be a great speaker, it takes you away from just having one story to tell to be able to actually having lessons to teach other people, so that you can become a speaker for them, not just in the moment, but over a very long short space of time.
Could you outline the type of speaker that Speakers Corner is, what your forte is?
So I think that the truth is our forte is we work with speakers who can help you as an individual or you as a company improve, change, learn, challenge yourselves. So actually we move away from it being what's the speaker got to say, to it being, what will the speaker give me in order to help me move myself or my business forward? And so we are interested in those people who might have a story, or they might have an idea, a thought leadership or something like that. But realistically, it's what can they give to these clients? And we live in a world where we're all confused. We live in a world where all businesses are challenged and kind of for many different reasons. And actually to be able to hear voices from outside your own sphere means actually you can reflect on where you're going and what you're hoping to do. And to me, that is what we are all striving for in this society today, is to actually have knowledge so we can make informed decisions.
Absolutely. What I really like about what you guys do is that it's the business knowledge is often contained in books, and we've got sort of YouTube videos and that kind of information's out there. But when you're engaged with a speaker who's holding a room, who's engaging with the audience inside that room and imparting that information, there's always something that you as the audience are going to take away from that. And if you're good, you're going to put that to use pretty much the next day. Are there any, when someone's booking a speaker through you, are there any things in their briefing process that you find really useful?
I think it's those people who start from a place over what do we want to get out of it. And I always say there's three questions. And the questions are effectively, what do you want the audience to see, to feel, and to experience? And that's really what you want, is actually, what do you want people to take away from this session? Because then you can work backwards. Like, we're not giving you the answer as in this person's going to say this and everyone's going to behave this way. But do we want to make the audience feel excited and enthusiastic? Do we want them to be reflective? We want them to be challenged about where they're going? Because if you start from there, then you can pick the right person. And alongside that is actually, what is the culture of the event or the company or the stage that actually they're presenting on? Because that's also going to impact the type of speaker that you want. You don't want like someone dressed in jeans and a t-shirt to be talking to a room of suited and booted people. You don't want someone standing behind a lectern at a room where they're just fizzing with creative energy. You want to marry up the speaker to the audience so they have that instant connection and that instant sense of a kind of relationship, respect, whatever the right word might be, so that the person on stage is listened to not because they command authority because we are on stage and therefore you will listen to us, but because I just feel something which turns around and says, hey, I want to listen to that person up on stage because I think I can connect with them and I'm really interested in their viewpoint. And that's a much deeper thing than just reading someone's biography and turning around and saying, look, they've achieved this, therefore I better listen to them.
Has the industry grown since you started?
I think kind of one of the things that my brother and I started Speakers Corner, I think one of the things that excited us when we started, having done other businesses before, was we had a chance to help grow an industry, not just grow a company. And I still think the industry is growing massively. I mean, we can talk about kind of the pandemic and everything and what happened in terms of moving to a virtual world and back into a real world and how that impacted speaking. But we are more and more conscious as individuals and businesses that actually the concept about someone, an expert, telling us what's going to happen next and what's not going to happen next is defunct in society. All we have is ideas and opinions, and some of those opinions might be based on more expertise or less expertise than someone else, or an experience or not experience. But fundamentally, myself as a person in the audience, myself as a person to anyone, I have the absolute right to challenge that person on stage and say, I don't agree with you. And that's the joy of the speaking industry. That's the joy of where I believe we're going to next, is actually even the concept of speaking or lecturing is wrong. Really, all you're doing is you're provoking conversation. You're provoking debate. You're instilling ideas in people's heads, which actually they should challenge. I look forward to the day when a speaker stands on stage, delivers an amazing speech, and then the CEO of the company comes out and says, I want you to know that everything that X person has just said, I disagree with. But here's the thing. If you agree with what they're saying, maybe this isn't the right company for you. But if you don't, if you're on the fence, understand the most critical part of this entire thing is that I'm listening to person X. I'm listening to what they have to say, and I just don't agree with them, so I'm taking the company in this direction. But just the fact that I'm not going to ignore it, their opinion, I'm going to listen to it, I'm going to respect it, I'm going to turn around and say that I don't believe in that. And that is an immensely powerful thing to say. It's kind of an immensely powerful place to be as a business, whereby you're turning around and saying, knowledge is power, knowledge is everything. And actually to turn around and reject the knowledge before you learn about it leaves you vulnerable in your industry to actually some new company coming along and thinking differently.
Okay. And look, you provide speakers for lots of different types of events, lots of different subjects. What's the smallest and what's the largest scale of event that you guys?
Kind of speaker works on all different levels, and the concept of speaker, you automatically think of a stage and a performance. But the truth is, actually, we've done round tables discussions of 4 or 5 people where they have someone's expertise coming around, and actually you're getting a different thing because it's more an intimate debate and a more intimate kind of Chatham House rules conversation. And then we've had speakers on stage for 30, 40,000 people where it's almost a kind of a rock concert type scenario. And what fascinates me, though, is like, then you go to a speaker and say, what do you prefer speaking to? And the truth is that they thought they'd get really nervous in front of the bigger stages, but actually it's much more nerve-wracking when you're in a room of 5 people, because you are going to be challenged about your ideas. When you're up on stage and in that room of in that audience with kind of tens of thousands of people, ultimately they have to listen to you, and kind of you've got the stage to yourself, and it's so vast that you don't get the nerves you do on the smaller stage.
So look, if I was thinking of starting a career as a speaker, and I've got no experience, but I think I've got information, I think I've got an interesting angle, what would be the first steps in order to start to build that career?
So I think the first step, and this is the most important thing, is treat it as part of your career. Don't just turn around and say, I've done this, therefore I deserve a stage. Because the truth is, you might have done it, but probably there's a lot of other people who've also done the same. And that is the same thing. So that's the first thing, is actually I'm going to treat it with respect, which means I'm going to learn about the industry. I'm going to learn about what I'm going to try and get into, which again isn't just about the stagecraft. It's about the whole aspect of the industry. And then the most important part is actually shifting away from turning around and saying, I've got a story to tell, to turning around and say, actually, why would people want to listen to me and what they're going to get from me? Because otherwise, I'm almost a one-trick pony. And once I've told my story, and in this day and age where everything's filmed, and therefore I've told my story once, it'll probably go up on YouTube. And if anyone wants to listen to the story, they can listen to it. You've got to be able to evolve, and you've got to have something to say, and you've got to appeal to people above and beyond that moment that you, whatever you did, that moment that you thought gave you the right to have a voice on stage. We all have the same right to be on stage because we all have something to say. But actually, the question is, what are the audience going to get from you?
Once you started that process, how do you go about building that career then?
It's a $1 million question. but I love it. How do I get, like, if you want me to do my test, come on Future Voices, where we teach you how to run a speaker business. But realistically, I'd be turning around and saying, get knowledge in the industry. Don't make the assumption that just because you've done something amazing and you're telling your mates in the pub and kind of they're lapping it up and loving every minute, that you have the right to be on stage. Go in there humble. I think that one of the interesting things for me is generally speakers start from a place that they've done something incredible. We've mentioned it a couple of times. And there's something called the transfer fallacy in this industry, which turns around and says, because I was amazing in this job, because I built a successful business, because I climbed 10 mountains, because I rode across the Atlantic, because I won a gold medal at the Olympics, I must be a great speaker. What other industry does that, where you just assume that you're going to be good in this industry because you were good in this industry? Give it the deference and give it the respect it deserves and find out about it. Challenge yourself to turn around and say, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to learn about this industry. I'm going to learn. Yes, sorry, go on.
Carry on.
Well, I'm just saying, kind of, we were actually talking off camera just before about kind of going to study. And for most careers, you go and you study in order to, and you do an apprenticeship or you go into a trainee program in order to get to where you want to. For some reason, I work in an industry where people think they become a fully formed subject because they did something in somewhere else. And it just doesn't sit right with me.
And that's great tip, actually. So no matter what your experience is, you've got to bring something more to the party than just, I'm very experienced at what I do. There's a style of presentation, perhaps. There's a storyline going through it. There needs to be an angle, right?
I use the word, listen, this industry is an abundant industry. That means there's an abundance of opportunities. But the flip side of that is there's an abundance of speakers. How do I own a space in this market that makes me stand out?
So it's about having that unique perspective, that unique story, that unique lesson that you can provide, that unique view. Okay.
Yes. I think the one thing I will always pick up on is everyone perceives they have a unique story. Very, very, very few people have a unique story, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great tip, actually. So let's look at the flip side. You've described how you can, what are the things to do in order to develop that speaking career. What are your 3 top tips of the things to avoid?
It's a great question. Number 1, my first tip is this: 80% of the game of speaking is not your ability on stage. That's the first thing. The number 2, and I said it before, is be humble. Walk into this industry and want to learn, want to become better, want to have a career in speaking rather than just perceive that the industry needs you.
So number two then is, if you're saying be humble, that the second thing to avoid is to be arrogant. That you thinking just because you've done something special makes you good to be.
If you put that aside, don't assume because you've done something incredible that therefore you deserve to have a right to be on stage. And the last part is that my last lesson: understand that your value in this industry is what people perceive your value to be. And what do I mean by that? It means that actually your package and your brand is yourself, and therefore make sure everything around that is positioned in the way that actually justifies the value you're attributing to yourself.
So how do you go about then getting the first booking? Because you can't turn up and say, "Hey Nick, I think I've got great experience. I think I've done it. I've got a really good presentation. Would you like to see it? I've got a unique style, I think, Nick. Give me a gig." It doesn't quite work like that, does it? So how does a new speaker go about getting that first booking?
It's all about the hustle. As like any other business, it's all about the hustle. And it's all about understanding that kind of my goal is to create this brand where people hear me so that actually they want to book me. Because we're weirdly in this industry where people are charged a vast sum of money to stand on stage and deliver their speech. And actually, the client is taking a punt on them based on the fact that they might have read their biography and might be intrigued about what they've got to say. So actually, how do I build up the brand so the client feels less concerned about the risk they're taking of having that person on stage? So kind of when we talk about that first gig, my advice is quite straightforward. Do those free gigs. Spend that time on the floor but don't just see it as practice just for your speech. See it as an opportunity to get great footage of yourself, to get great testimonials of yourself, to get great clarity over what your message is and how you would deal with different types of audiences and different types of settings. And make sure then you take that and you package that all up. So when you do approach the likes of Speaker's Corner or another bureau or companies out there, your brand is everything. It's not just, I'm a great speaker because yesterday I did this speech. It's actually, here's stuff which gives proof over why I am as good as I am.
So you've given us some fantastic tips. You've given us some things to avoid. But you've been doing this for how many years now, Nick?
About 25.
25 years. You
It's a
must
long
have had some
time.
pretty big challenges in that time. Tell me the top 3 challenges that you've had in running business.
So I think the number one challenge we have is fundamentally we're a people business. We're dealing with clients and our product to people as well. So all the way across, we're dealing with people. And yes, we have contracts over, et cetera, but fundamentally different people have different requirements and different people want different stuff. And although you might be dealing with your client, actually they're reporting into their director of their company who's looking for something else. And so the single biggest challenge we have is to understand what everyone's looking for and actually be able to read between the lines when dealing with people about what they're saying and what they actually mean. And that's also the speaker as well. And which leads nicely into my second challenge, which is the fact that, and I'm still yet to find another area, we are weirdly most at risk once we've sold our product. And what do I mean by that? It's like we book Matt for a speech, but Matt's not delivering that speech for 6 months. Time. So we've got this entire period of time where we need to keep the client happy. And at the same time, we need to make sure Matt's going to deliver on the day. And at the same time, when Matt walks into that, sorry, I'm using you, Matt, but when you walk onto that stage, you're still a human being. And we all have things that happen to us on that day. And therefore the joy of live speaking is it doesn't always go to plan. And so what we look at and therefore it's about how you react when it doesn't go to plan and what happens. And our job is to build up the relationship with the speakers. So when those things do happen, we work together to resolve them for the client's perspective. And then the last big challenge is listen, and this is flippant, and I'm sure it's growing a business. And personally for me, is as the business grew, Speakers Corner grew and kind of went from a few of us up to like 30 odd people. And you realize you get further and further away from doing the bits that you like and actually become a business owner and become kind of looking after people and the challenge of doing that and doing that well. And I would say alongside that, kind of the last 5 years, 6 years have been a roller coaster with the pandemic, and going through that has been a challenge on many, many levels.
I mean, the pandemic obviously had an enormous impact. It must have had a profound impact on Speakers Corner and on all the businesses because, the world kind of stopped.
I say, just one story about I suppose myself and kind of challenges is I strive for the best, and kind of I'm always on my team over the fact what can we be doing better, how can we improve ourselves, etc. And my head of finance came to me 2 weeks before about 3 or 4 days before lockdown. And during this time, basically, if you think that everyone knew it was coming, and all we were dealing was event cancellations because everyone was cancelling their events because everyone knew what was happening. And she said to me, I don't understand it. You are constantly kind of pushing us to do better, even when kind of constantly trying to get better. And you walk around very often frowning, thinking about stuff and things like that. For the last week or whatever, your face has been, you've been walking around smiling and being happy and like almost, and we all know what's going on and we're seeing what's going on in terms of the cancellations. Why are you like this? And I stopped and I thought, and I realized the interesting part about the pandemic was I lost all sense of control. It was like there was something happening out there which had taken away our ability to, whatever we did at that moment in time, we weren't making any mistakes because it was out of our hands. And because of that, almost an immense relief, an immense weight got taken off. And also taken that forward over the belief now that there's only so much you can control and there's only so much you can do. And as long as you're doing your best, then kind of you don't have to kind of beat yourself up or whatever about every single thing. Sometimes things just happen and you ride it. We went from a place where things were going really great to a place where it didn't exist, and yet it's come back up. And it's given me that sense that whatever happens, things do work out the way that you want them to work about. You just have to be strong and have courage in what you believe in.
So it sounds like you have an enormous amount of resilience there, and being in an industry that was severely impacted. Of course, many industries were by COVID. And look, there's been other challenges. We've gone through political turmoil. We've had Brexit that's affected many industries, and then you've got COVID, the cost of living crisis. What would be your 3 top tips for getting through these macroeconomic challenges?
So number 1 is have faith in what you're doing. Your business model, if it worked before and it stacks up, it'll work now, whatever's going on in the macro. 2, focus on what you're good at. Focus on yourselves and deliver what you're good at. Focus on what you're good at and deliver it. And 3, and to me, this is the most important, enjoy what you do every day. We only get one life. the old adage, which I heard so many times in corporate life, where you work for the weekend or you spend too long at work. Enjoy work. I take pride in the fact I want to employ people. I want to be around people who I want to be around. You can teach skills. What you can't teach is personality. So enjoy yourself, like enjoy the stress. That's really, which is counterintuitive maybe.
And actually, working inside a business, developing a business should always be an act of love, because you kind of need to love what you're doing to be able to get up through the hard times. You need to love what you're doing to be able to keep other people motivated and focused, and keep their attention going. Because running a business can be incredibly difficult, can be very lonely, can be very challenging. You haven't got that sense of purpose or that sense of love for what you're doing. Very difficult to keep on going.
Yeah. It's one of the things that always intrigued me about programs such as Dragon's Den, where the questions are always about what's the exit. To me, you miss the entire part about having your own business, about starting your own business, about growing your own business. Like for those truly successful companies, it's never about the exit. It's about the journey within it.
If you have a strong enough why, then you'll find the how. So if you have that purpose, you've got that direction, then no matter what life throws at you, you'll get through it.
Yeah.
But without that, again, really challenging, can be really tough running a business.
Yes.
Nick, if I can ask you, because you're 25 years in business, usually successful with the enterprises that you have. If you were going to start again, what would you do differently?
I'd have the confidence to understand the power to say, I don't understand. It took me many years to do this, and still I question myself the whole time. But to sit in a room with people and be the person who says, I don't understand, is the most powerful statement you can say. Because almost if you don't understand it, then you know that half of the people in that room don't understand it. And even possibly the person who's saying it doesn't really understand what they're saying. And actually, if you say it without judgment, but with let's understand what we're doing, then you can start having proper conversations. And I think we live too much in a world where we worry about the perceptions of other people on us. And we worry about actually the ability to say, I don't understand. Also, from other things, the ability to apologize, to say, I'm sorry, I got this wrong. Things like this, like what are perceived as negative statements in terms of perceptions, are actually the most powerful thing. And I wish I knew it, but I wish I would have had the confidence to live and die by those at the beginning, because I think my life would have been much more fulfilled from the outset.
That's a phrase that keeps on coming up with you. It's very notable.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about, like, you get asked the whole time, kind of, what do you want from the business? What's he hoping to achieve? And all this whole thing about, and I think as you get older and as you spend more time, it's just about living in the present and feeling like, am I getting what I want out of stuff, rather than worrying about what that actually means later on.
It sounds like you're fairly philosophical about work and life and the blend between them. Are there any books or podcasts that you can point people towards with regards to that?
That's an excellent question, because now I show my naivety. You know something, I say this, and I say this hand on heart, I'm very, very privileged that I've got to see and listen to some of those incredible people speaking.
Of course.
I really have, and I think I go into these speaker sessions with an open mind, understanding that everyone has something to say. And I've heard people who have bored the pants of me, who I've hated, and I've heard people who I've loved, and people who have entranced me. But I can go through all of them and say I've picked up a lesson from every single one of them. And I think it's the answer to your question with a bit of deflection is, every single podcast, every single book has something to teach you, whether or not you believe in that or otherwise. There are always lessons to learn.
Yeah, do you know what? That's a fantastic answer.
So thank you.
Because I think, I read a lot, I listen to lots of podcasts, I watch videos, I'm constantly striving for knowledge. And usually I pick up from any single book anywhere between 1 and maybe 5 things that I can implement. And I realize that all that information is kind of sitting in the back of my head somewhere.
Yes.
But the amount that I actually use will be limited to the one purpose I'd find for that book. So yeah, fascinating perspective, because obviously you've seen lots of speakers saying some amazing things, imparting their knowledge, imparting their passion. So that's like an encyclopedia right there.
Yes, I worry that my brain now leaks out information all over the place, but as long as it keeps a little bit, I'm happy.
You bump into your 18-year-old self walking on the street, what would you tell them?
Enjoy every moment, because it's your life. Even the worst parts, enjoy every moment. Just like learn from them and embrace it. And don't be worried about what the future holds. because I mean, listen, especially in this world that we live in today, like it's so fast changing. Who knows what next year is going to look like, let alone 5 years, 10 years, or as an 18-year-old, 30 years time. Live in this moment, be happy in this moment. And then I kind of, maybe karma's kind of, whatever you believe in karma, I believe that actually you live for yourself and good things happen.
Okay. Nick, it's been great speaking with you today. It's like speaking to a business philosopher. What has resonated actually is because you're around all these great speakers who are both entertainment and education all at the same time.
Yes.
You must have picked up some absolute gems along the way, and that has helped forge part of your understanding of business, along with running a business for 25 years, pretty much not far off inventing a category, because you've been very you've been very humble about it, but you really have been at the forefront of the speaking industry for those 25 years. You've helped formulate an entire industry. You helped create it, an industry that I've benefited from, and I believe that anybody watching this has also benefited from. So, Nick, thank you so much for doing that wonderful thing, for
Honestly, Matt,
entertaining and informing us. So that's
I appreciate that so much. It's been a joy, and as you say, an absolute privilege to get we have the ability to get the right people on stage to deliver kind of hope, meaning, education, thought to people who, when we're all looking for it, and that is a joy. I can't run away from it. Thank you, Matt.